So I'll share my screen real quick. Let's do this. All right. So if you do the free version on FinViz, it is definitely doesn't have as much shit that you can use. But I mean the basics are there, and like I said, it's free. So if anybody that's watching this, they don't have a lot of money, that's fine. You can absolutely do this for free. And it's just gonna take you a little bit more work and a little bit more time. But it's really simple. The main stuff that I look for, like so when you get on, if you did look at FinViz, for instance, you always come over here to short float. 4.77. For me, that's like just under like the cutoff, really. So it's pretty low float. Um Short float is good, 3.21. The other thing I look at is institutional ownership, which is 0.97. So I'm not really worried about that. And then I also look at the market cap. I don't want anything over 150 million market cap. So the two stocks that were on everyone's radar today was Indo. The one thing I do, uh, for me at least, Indo, I like their chart. It's easier for me to read. We'll hop over to Edge to Trade here in a second, but I like this. It's just nice, simple daily. For me, if I was looking at this, I don't know if I can draw on this shit or not. Draw. So for me, like I see like a distribution pattern, which means it's having lower highs and then it's got like a floor on it. So usually how I used to trade this when I was more of a beginner, I would literally wait for this to break and then I would take a short right here on like lower time frames and stuff. So like anything like this, makes me feel like there's going to be overhead resistance. And so if I see this on a daily, how I'd be looking to trade this is I'd be looking for this to reject this level, which it did. But the problem is, like I said, it's got low float, and I haven't actually looked at the charts at all yet, so we'll kind of go over that too. But I would imagine this is probably going to end up being a gap and extension. So anybody that's new, I would not recommend trading a gap and extension. So it would kind of be off the radar. But if I was going to look for it, like that's the kind of stuff that I look for is chart patterns on the daily is going to be the strongest. Obviously it's going to be like the freight train kind of thing. Like you want something that is got levels on the daily. Like I love these upper wicks. It shows me that there's a lot of selling pressure. Nobody's really buying this thing. It's a piece of shit stock. The other one was MLGO. I hate this daily because it's literally just nothing from here to here is just shit. And so for me, I hate this one. I really, really, really hate this one. The other thing I don't like about it compared to the other one is that this thing has a 24% short float, which would make sense because I mean this thing was at like a dollar or 160 in December. And so yeah, I if I was an institutional owner, or I'd be shorting the shit out of this thing too. But it's down, around the dollar 18s or whatever. It's got really, really low float. Um, Under 3 million shares float, really low market cap. So like for me, I really don't like that. But if you do pay for Edge to trade, and those they're actually gonna be like rewatching this later. Trey listened and he went and he just went ahead and purchased it. The reason I like Edge to trade so much is because it's it's a scanner on top of everything else. So I have every single thing that gaps over here. Everything that gaps up Like, I mean, even above 15%. Doesn't matter how much float or anything. And you can change all this stuff too. So like for me, when I see a gapper, the first thing I see is how much volume is it trading. It needs to have volume, or I'm not going to trade it. I want to see what the gap percentage is. I want to see what the float is. I want to see the market cap. I don't really care about shares outstanding, but yeah, columns. So you can change all this stuff. Like I don't care about shares outstanding. I care about like institutional ownership. So I'll switch that around. But if you click on right here at the tab, it'll say columns. Click that, and you can plug and play. Like for me, I don't really care what the index is, but obviously the ticker number of news is good because if there's no news, then I mean it can be really really trappy. It's just going to be running on nothing. If you see a bunch of news, it might be a good indication that hey, this is going to get pumped up a lot, and this might be a really good play to trade. I like to have price on there to know. I really don't like anything under $2. Like anything like in the $1 area is super shitty because really to make any money on it, you have to trade with really big size. Volume is really important. The change of in percentage, the gap percentage or change percentage is important to me. The float, market cap, and what the fuck? Why does this keep on doing that? I don't want shares out. I want institutional ownership, apply. Ah, there you go. I was being a fucking retard. I wasn't hitting apply. So you have to hit apply. So the reason I like it is because you can literally just come over here and say TWKS was interesting to you. I have these things all linked up so that the second I push any of this, everything changes to whatever it is. Then I have my gap and crap settings down here. How do I do that? Is it filters? Yeah, filters. So it has to be over 90 cents and it can be up to $12. I need the volume before market opens, at least 50,000, which is basically well anything really. And then after 9:30, I want to see at least 1 million shares within the first, couple bars because if there's no volume pumping in, like I said, I'm not gonna be able to trade it, and you're not gonna be able to trade it with the actual size. I want to see the pre-market gap above 30%, because that weeds out this other uh gappers. Um, and then I want to see that it's like whatever its gap was, like say it gapped up 50%. I want this thing to have at least gave back 15% of that gap for me to have a gap and crap. If anything's above 15%, like say it gapped up 100% to make it easy. I want it to at least be back down to like 85 because that gives me range. It means it has a ceiling above it and it gives me a risk level. Anything that's a gap and extension means that whatever the pre-market high was, it went over that. So the only way that I can trade that is if it has a daily level on it. But I like edge to trade a lot because, like for instance, one of them that's on here is MLGO, and the second I click on MLGO, it pops up all this shit. So it's got 9 gaps on this thing. Only 2 of the gaps close green. So say it opened at $2. That means that only 2 out of the 9 closed above $2. All the other ones, whatever it gapped up to and it opened at, it closed below the $2. So that's really good. Then also shows me over here the market cap, the float, the short float, which is not good at all. 38% short float, that's a huge red flag. I don't want anything over 30% on short float and institutional ownership. I don't want over 30%. I also don't really like insider ownership, but I'm not like that's not a huge red flag to me unless it's, like a float of 1.25 million. That's a big red flag. That means that the retail traders can only trade with 500,000 shares. It's owned by all insiders and it can be really, really trappy. The other thing I like is it shows the financials. So this thing only has 1.75 million working capital and it's in the hole. It's like 2 months behind money. So they need to make this thing gap up so they can sell their shares to keep the lights on. And so it makes it really easy to just plug and play. So the other one was Indo, and you can type in up the top left hand corner. You can type in the ticker. So Indo. This thing, okay, like at the very beginning, I like it a lot more because it has 19 gaps. 63% of them, 12 of them close below the open, so I like that a lot. Um, Average high day 10:30, so that to me means more of like a gap and crap style. I like that. Um, then you start coming over here, float. I don't like the float. It's 4.77 million. It's under 5 million. I don't like that. I like the short float, low institutional ownership. Love those. And then once again, the insider. I don't like the insiders owning half the shares. So this thing is a 5 million float. That means the insiders have 2.5 million shares. So this thing really is, it's not a 5 million float. It's more of like a 2.5 million. So it's a really micro float, which I really don't like. You have no idea how many months of capital it has, but it has money. It has 5 million dollars worth of working capital. But the other thing I do like is, I mean, they both have the charts, but this is, like real time. You can actually see it. This is how it reacted during the day. But if you pull up Thinkorswim, I'm gonna start writing these things in for the other classes I want to start talking about here in a second. So go to Indo on a 1 minute chart. So Indo for me, anybody that traded Indo, they don't follow the rules at all because this thing pretty much right at open, it hit the final target. Or no, it's below the final target. That's the hourly J line. Like this thing died. So when you start trading, this dotted line over here, well, one of the dotted lines, I know it's going to look crazy shit to you at the very beginning, but this is the final target. So if it hits the final target, that means it's dead. It is not a play. If it does shoot up, the only way that you can trade this is at this blue dotted line. That's the pre-market high. You can short there, but uh, another thing I want to touch on is I was talking to a couple other guys today and yesterday. Say say in a magical world you're trading with 1,000 shares, okay? If this thing shoots up here, that does not mean that you trade with 1,000 shares. This is fucking dead. It hit the final target. It's not an A plus setup. When you start trading, like this needed to be like in this area, like $2.80, shoots up into the golden zone, then yeah, you can trade with 1,000 shares, risking over this or whatever your dollar amount is. Just make it easy. Let's say 1,000 shares, and then you would cover at the first target 500 shares, the blue line, 250 at the yellow line, 125 at the purple line, and 125 at the dotted line. in the perfect world, it played out and it was actually a play. The second this thing hits the final target and is dead, this turns into like a C grade trade. So if this pops up to here, you're not trading with 1,000 shares. You're trading with like 200 shares because it doesn't deserve the risk of a full trade. And then if it doesn't even hit the first target, all right, well this goes above, you just leave it alone. It's literally not worth your time because the odds of this going all the way back down are slim because it already hit the bottom. The big hands are buying this shit down here with no volume. They're buying this and shooting this up. They're not going to make their money on like unless it's up in here. These guys probably sold a shit ton, up in the higher levels up here. They bought down here at $2.20. They sell up here around 3.20s. They made $1 per whatever their share was. So they made some money. Then what they probably did is they started buying back because all these very stupid, impatient shorts were jumping in no man's land. And then they got squeezed, and now these guys made even more money up in here when it's trading damn near $4. So the big money made almost $1 on their shares down here up in this range. Then they started collecting eager shorts that are bored and aren't following the rules, and they got their faces ripped off. And then the big money sold their shares that they bought at $3 up here damn near $4. That's the game of small caps, which is why I don't waste my time with any of this stuff. The other one is MLGO. Did I type that in right? Why was why were people watching MLGO? Like this looks like that I had to type that in wrong. MLGO, MLO, MGOL. Okay. Jesus. I was like, dude, MGLO. Did I type that in wrong again? I'm tired of shit. I'm sorry. MGOL. 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 Good God. All right, there we go. Third time's the charm. So, um, this stock, really, I'm really not a fan of this either because in the pre-market it hit the final target. It did shoot back up here, but really, I mean, for me, it's uh you call this chop in here. It's just chopping people around. I can't remember what it said the float was. MGOL five
Hey Adam,
million.
I don't know if it's just your just my screen or what, but the screen that's being shared, it's still showing Endo. I don't know if it's doing that for the recording too.
It oh yeah, it is the edge trade. Oh, one second. Stop share. Try this. Screen one. Move this over here. So MGOL.
There you go. Yeah, I got you now.
All right. So yeah, like I said, dude, I literally would not be watching this. It's got a shit ton of short float, insiders, but and it's 2 million share float. Like this is just a huge no go. The only way from that chart on yeah, really, I mean the it just there's no way I would trade this. It's just it's insane. And so one of the biggest things I was talking to a few people today. So a couple people got cut up, right? It's going the reason that you first start off paper trading like what you're doing is because you're gonna fuck up a lot. And you can start learning a little bit about, well, the systems and stuff. But when I was talking to one of the guys today, eventually you'll get to a phase where you need to kind of start making your own rules. But right now, the rules that you should be sticking to just to work on your discipline is nothing above the gap and grab. So you need to make sure that whatever the pre-market high is, it doesn't go above pre-market high at all. And that's like the first clear-cut rule that you should make sure that it has faded back from. I know you have DOS, you don't have Thinkorswim, but just to make it a little bit easier. 1 minute chart. So what you would do, I don't know if this is going to line up because I mean, yeah, that's good enough. So what I would do if I was you is going to be relatively the same as Thinkorswim. You draw a fib level in. You're like on DOS, it's called fib line, and you're going to do exactly the opposite of what I'm about to do. So when you get on DOS, you're going to draw in a fib line from the high of pre-market down to the low. It should pop up fibs, and you're going to take off everything except for the 61 fib and the 78 fib. What you want to start doing is you want to start recognizing patterns like, for instance, like this kind of stuff, this kind of stuff, this kind of stuff. You want to see that kind of stuff in the 61 to 78 fib level after the open. So whenever it opens, you want to see this thing popping up into the 61, 78 fib level, and you want to start seeing these kind of patterns. That top wick there shows you that somebody is selling their shares. And when you start seeing it, I have an old video that you can go watch on school where I literally walk through and I explain it. But like when I was a younger kid, we used to go to the swim pools and we used to dunk each other. We'd swim up behind our friends and we thought it'd be funny, like dive up and grab their head and dunk them under. Well, it doesn't work very well if like you're struggling. Like you want to like grab them and it's really, really quickly dunk them right under the water. That's how I explained what the candle looks like. You'll see it popping up and all of a sudden it just slams down really, really quick. And once you start seeing that, that means that there is somebody that is selling a shit ton of shares. You want to see the volume going up and all of a sudden it just slams down. That shows that somebody sold a shit ton of shares into all that volume. They need volume to be able to sell high quantities of shares. So you want to see the shares going up, you want to see the candles going up, and then you want to see a rejection like that into the 61 to 78 fib level. If you don't see that, then you don't take a trade. If it goes above pre-market high, you just watch. Just get screen time, watch it, however much time you have. Watch from like 9:30 in the morning until 11, and then just get away. And that like really that's as simple as it has to be. Is just you come in, you draw in a fib line on DOS, it's gonna be different. You're drawing a fib line. You understand what I'm explaining, like the floor, right? Does that make sense to you or no?
Yeah, so you're saying, and this is pre-market, right? So whatever the floor
In,
is on
in,
on
in
pre-market, you're basically
exactly. So if for instance, if you can see my screen on Mogul, right? How I would draw
Yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah.
this this is the floor.
Yeah.
This is the ceiling. It doesn't have to be perfect, but what I'm trying to do
Yeah.
is I want to get this thing up at the top. So for me, I know there's gonna be a lot of shit all over the place, but like once I draw it in, I'll delete the fibs. But what I'm trying to do is for you realistically, you shouldn't be trying to like don't get in too close to the pre-market high. But wait, I think I drew that in wrong. Move from here to there. So what you want to do is the only place you want to be traded in is like right in here. The
Hmm.
reason you want to do that is because the only way that you're going to make money is selling high and buying low. When you short sell, you inverse it. You're selling first and you're buying back. But when you cover your position or buy back, you make the difference between that. You have to make sure that you're at the top of the candle. Like the reason I explain a floor and a ceiling is imagine you're in a imagine you're in a two-story house. My house is a two-story house, right? You
Hmm.
walk in the main level, there's the floor. I don't want to be shorted anywhere near the floor. Now I start walking around. I'm pretty sure I have standard ceilings, so 8 foot tall ceilings, right? If I stand up, I still have a good chunk of distance between the ceiling. So like I don't want to be shorting anything below the top of my head. The second it reaches the level of the top of my head, all right, cool. I have about 2 feet, right? If I start seeing selling pressure between that area, perfect. Then it's worth the risk reward because what I'm looking for is I want to short in that area, but I'm looking to cover down towards the floor. I'm not gonna be greedy as shit and cover everything at the floor, especially not as a beginner. You're gonna be freaking the hell out. But your final cover should be probably I would say about the like in this example, probably my desk. That's a pretty good range from near the ceiling to the bottom of my desk. And so all you're trying
Hmm.
to do is you're trying to get a little piece. And at the same time, you're building up discipline to only trade the certain stuff. Like I would imagine when not retail homeowners, but I mean you're a real estate agent, right? So when you deal with real estate investors, people that actually know what in the fuck they're doing, how often do you see somebody that goes out and say they do a burr strategy, and then the next one they do a fourplex, and then they go out and they buy a commercial building with 100 units, or then they go and do a flip, or then they go and I don't know, they develop. Like most people that are doing investing at least at the very beginning, at the very very beginning, they usually typically stick to like one thing. They might dabble
Yeah.
around a little bit, but when they do dabble around, it's with very low size. That kind of goes back to my graded trade. If you're going to do something with your A plus setup, it's the thing that is 9 out of 10 times is going to make you money. Gap and crap is a very low risk thing because it already showed you where the ceiling is. All you have to do is look for the right indicator near the ceiling, take your trade, and then don't get greedy. Just follow my playbook and cover half at the J lines. Okay, the red line. I'm almost positive they're red on your DOS. Cover half. Even at the very beginning, right? You should be trading with 100 shares at the very beginning. Okay, you cover 50 shares at the J lines. It doesn't matter about the money. The money does not matter at all right now because it's the process, it's the system that gets like automated. Because the second you start covering half, you lower your stop to break even. Now you made money. You can't lose any money. That's the name of the game. It's a game. It doesn't matter about the money at all. You're literally playing a fucking game. That's it. The second it goes
Yeah.
down to the second target, I believe it's a yellow line on the DOS. That's another 50, another 50%. So you cover 25 shares there. Then really realistically at the very end, you should just cover like everything at the 5 minute J lines, just call it a fucking day. All right, perfect. The difference is when you start following the rules and you start sizing up, which is what I'm trying to get the guys that I'm doing my mentoring program with, because they're actually trading decent size and they're actually really making money. Okay, those guys, like when you start getting to using that kind of size, you start using 1,000 shares, dude. Like on this fucking stock, like I said, I wouldn't have traded this stock, but just to use this as an example. Well, that's not really a good example because I mean that's a gap in extension, but the other one I believe was a gap in. I mean that's okay. We'll just use this. All right. So say you took a trade here at $3.13 with 1,000 shares. Say this was the 1 minute J lines, right? So that's 85 cents. So on that's only $150, but so you cover half there. So say you made 75 bucks in 15 minutes. You made $75 in 15 minutes. And then you lower your stop to break even. Okay, dude, like you made 75 bucks in 15 fucking minutes. I mean, that's really, really good hourly rate. And especially for people that should they should be doing this as a side hustle. They should not be doing this full time. I literally just put out another short where I'm talking to a guy that he's been trading for 5 years now, full time. He said that like what he recommends is most people are not going to be going professional and doing this full time unless they've been trading like at least 3 years. I just did a podcast with a guy that like me and him both agreed, you know, is a very, very rare person. He was in the financial world and so he understood how big money trades. And so I really believe that's why he's able to catch his stride a little bit quicker. Like honestly, that's kind of like me. Like really, yes, I traded professionally and full time for like a year, but really, like I never should have fucking done it. I really, 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 really should not have done it. And that's why I tell everybody, don't fucking do it, man, because it sounds awesome until your mortgage is due in like a week and you haven't traded anything or you've lost money and then you gotta pull one out of your ass and it's a very very stressful time. I survived, I did it, and then like finally I pulled my head out of my ass and I changed things. But the very beginning you just want to get used to doing a system and not worrying about money at all, because if you give yourself really like no shit, I would say like not even a year, Really, not even if not even a year. If you really, really are coachable and you follow a system correctly, dude, there's no reason that you should not be able to make a solid $300-400 a day just as a side hustle. On top of that, dude, you're doing real estate. So I mean, when you get a deal, you're fucking making a lot of money. So I mean, you get an extra
Yeah.
$400, from trading stocks. That's a really good paycheck, dude. Like I don't remember what the statistics are on $300 averaging $300 a day, but I think it's like you're making like $100,000 a year. I mean, that's better than most people's
Yeah. It's about
salary.
100.
Yeah, and so I mean, like,
Yeah.
but it's funny when you're in these Discord rooms, which I'm gonna make another video about that and how why I think that they're absolutely horrible for beginner traders. But you know, learning this kind of stuff and like what you've already done since you and I have been talking for like really frequently, like over a week, you've already listened a million times better than like 90% of the people I talk to because I'm like, hey dude, do this. Okay, cool. I get text message like 2 days later. Hey man, can you help me set this up? Absolutely. Cool. Then, the next day, hey dude, I'm gonna go get that product Edge of Trade that you told me about. Can you show me how to use it? Yes, I can show you how to use it. This is literally all you have to do. You start seeing these red flags. It at the very beginning, nothing under 5 million share float, nothing under 5 million share float, nothing with 30% or more institutional ownership, insider ownership, or short float. Anything besides that, go for it. Which means honestly, how the market's been for like the last 2 months or so, you're probably not going to be trading a lot because 90% of the shit that is popping up right now are like really, really low float. And like we were talking earlier with, the market kind of like doing a freaking nosedive. And I really believe that we're in for a really, really rough few months. There might not be a lot of stuff, but like really on the flip side of that, the positive thing is working on your discipline and just getting screen time and watching how these stocks move because okay, at the very beginning I was told not to trade microfloats because they rip people's faces off. I didn't listen and I got my face ripped off. I learned a lot. I lost a shit ton of money. Dude, I lost thousands of dollars not following rules. And then the second I finally pulled my head out of my ass and started following rules, and I had enough screen time to recognize this stuff. Yeah, dude, now I will trade a microfloat. I'm telling you guys not to, but I will. I have 5 or 6 years worth of experience. And the other thing is what I told you earlier. I'm not trading it full size. When I trade this stuff, I'm trading it. Okay, cool, man. I made $200 today, $300. Okay, like I'm gonna go out for a nice dinner, or I'm just I'm just
Yeah.
fucking around. I'm not going in on these things like where I'm trying to make a paycheck on a micro float. Like it's it's play money or and I'm also not risking the same amount of money because I know 9 out of 10 times or 7 out of 10 times I'm gonna lose. And so I go into that knowing that. But when you're a beginner, you don't think about that. All you think about is, you know, the, I don't know how real estate is, but I would imagine when you first started, like you saw the money that you can make from real estate, and you're like, oh my god, dude, I can get all this money. But I doubt you factored in, or like unless you're just different than most people and you think very logically. But I mean, showing the house the gas back and forth to all the showings, all the shit that goes into it, all the expenses that you have to put into the listings and all that kind of stuff. Like I feel like most people don't think about that kind of thing at the very beginning. You just see the dollar signs and that's what attracts
Yeah.
people to the life. So hopefully, you coming from a being a very successful real estate agent I would imagine that this world's not going to be that much different. You just got to dial it in and start learning how to play this game and seeing how they manipulate things. Most small caps, they do the same shit over and over and over. These small floats, I guarantee I'm not very good at it, so that's why I don't want to do a lesson on it. But you can dive into their financials and see if they've done an offering or not. But those ones that have the micro floats, most of them go out and they'll sell shares to like Wainwright or JP Morgan or whatever, and they'll have it'll show that they have 2 million shares, but 9 out of 10 times, dude, when these things are gapping up on like fluff news or bullshit news, it's usually JP Morgan or Wainwright or one of these big institutional guys that will be going to their media friends to gap this thing up, and that way they can start selling their shares that they bought for a discounted price off of whatever company gapped up. And that's how most of it goes. Like most of these stocks, like if you look at it, if say they gap up from $2 and they go to $3 or $4, over the course of the next like 4 or 5 days, most of them go back under $2. Why is that? Because there's more shares in the market now. And so if it was trading at $2, 9 out of 10 times it's going to be under $2 the next 4 or 5 days. You just got to time it correctly. It's not a big cap. It's not something you invest in. It's literally a rigged game. And a lot of the beginner guys get pissed off talking about algos and market makers. And it's like, dude, you can bitch and moan all you want. But if there wasn't algos or market makers or all these traps, you wouldn't have a job. And so you have to learn the game. So hopefully that showed you, and anybody else that actually watches this, that you can use Finviz and it's free. Obviously, when you start paying money, you get better quality stuff, which is going to be another thing. If anybody actually does watch this far into this, that's why I'm going to start doing my paid classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm going to have meetups at 5 p.m. On Tuesdays and Thursdays where we're going to do essentially what we just did. We're going to talk about stocks that have gapped up. That's why I put those two stocks on my list, because on Tuesdays and Thursdays we're going to go over those stocks, and I'm going to bring up Edge to Trade, and we're going to talk about, hey, this is why I would not trade this shit. This is what I'm looking at. This is how I see the market. This is how I look at the thing, and hopefully people find value in that, or are willing to jump into the subscription, and then we kind of take off from there. So, but anyways,
Yeah, I'm gonna spend some time playing around in this DOS so I can at least figure out how to use it for tomorrow. So um, mess around with that a bit. Seems like the setup or like everything's not really fitting in the like in my screen.
you can move that stuff. It's like a window, dude. You can move it around and like size them up. You can make those screens as big as you want.
Okay, maybe yeah, that's maybe what I need to do.
But